Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a minute. Okay, hello, everyone, and welcome to our third class for this workshop. Please do follow us on our website at internationalstemacademy.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram with these following handles. And with that, we'll be getting started. So as I said, this is day 3 of our workshop, and we'll be just getting started now. So today we'll be covering organizing a speech, types of different organizational arrangements for a speech, and how to outline your speech. So coming to organizing a speech, we all know that being organized matters. The audience will clearly see if you're on stage and you're not organized. They can tell. And because of this, they may lose interest or find you to be untrustworthy. So if you come up to the podium or wherever you're presenting, whether it's through video or at an occasion, if you're not organized and you're flipping through your notes, or you're thinking too much about what to say, or you even say too much information, then the audience will clearly know that you're not organized. And this decreases the effectiveness of your speech. They will clearly know that you are not prepared, and regardless of what information it is that you're presenting, they will think that you're not trustworthy, and it will be a subliminal cue. Most of the time, your audience makes their impression of you within a millisecond of them seeing you. Their brain already makes an association or a judgment on how trustworthy you are within 1 second. So if you come onto the stage and you look disoriented or disorganized, then they will clearly know. And so to avoid that, you want to definitely be organized. And like we went through last session, if you go through your brainstorming and word association and make a clear outline and practice, you will definitely be organized and be able to deliver an effective speech. So coming to this point, if you don't put in the time to be organized, why should anyone care about what you're saying? Being organized will also serve you in life. So if you're organized and you communicate your speech effectively and easily for everyone to understand, they will know that you spent time, and they will definitely take what you say into more consideration versus if you're not. This type of organization will help you throughout your life also. So just as you're organizing a speech or you're organizing an essay, you can take that skill forward throughout your school and at home and throughout your career after you finish school, and this will help you as a valuable skill all throughout life. So coming to the basic structure of a speech, we obviously start with the introduction. The first part of the introduction should always be your introductory sentence, where you introduce yourself and the topic that you are going to present. I always tell my students to practice this one sentence a lot, because that one sentence carries a lot of weight with the audience. This is the first time they're going to hear you speak, other than you maybe saying thank you for having gotten the opportunity to speak. So when you introduce yourself, like my introduction would be, hi, my name is Sri Maineni, and I'll be teaching you about the structure of a speech today. When you say that sentence, if you don't say it commandingly and authoritatively and with a lot of confidence, your audience will have a diminished impression of you. So you want to practice that introductory sentence a lot about just introducing yourself and also the topic. Also, you want to gain the audience's attention very quickly in the speech. right in the introduction, you want to try to hook them in and retain their attention. If you don't make your speech sound interesting in the beginning and have some way of getting the audience's attention, then it's going to be very hard to gain their attention later on in the speech. You want to be able to hook them right in the beginning and have that be carried throughout the remainder of your topic or your speech. You want to present the topic that you are talking about. You want to let everyone know and inform them why you are taking their 5 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour in order to talk to them, the purpose of why you're talking, and a small preview of what it is that you're going to be covering. This should all be covered in the introduction. You should also try to establish a common ground between yourself and the audience. So what does this mean? If you're presenting a topic to the audience that they don't know much about, then you should try to establish some sort of common ground with them and try to maybe explain some of the fundamentals or basic concepts that they need to know to understand the rest of your speech. You cannot assume that all of the audience knows basic concepts that they need in order to understand everything else. You have to make sure that you inform them right in the beginning. You also want to establish your credibility right in the beginning, because this is where you establish yourself as a subject expert. So again, coming to the point of why anyone should listen to you, you need to be able to establish credibility that you are an expert or know something about the topic and people should listen to what you're saying. So for me, if I want to establish credibility, I'll introduce myself. Hey, my name is Sri Maineni. I've been teaching public speaking for over 5 years. I've taught elementary school kids, middle school, high school, adults, executives, board members. I've coached executives for keynote speeches, and etc. So me telling you that information gives you some sort of evidence that I'm credible enough to teach this class to you. Whatever topic it is that you may be presenting, you want to establish that credibility right in the beginning so that your audience is comfortable with listening to you and knows that the information and knowledge that you are sharing is appropriate and also trustworthy. So coming to the body, this is the middle or the bulk of your speech. This will fulfill the speech's purpose. So whatever your type of speech that you're trying to give, informative, persuasive, what have you, you want to be able to fulfill that entire purpose throughout your body, which is where you'll be presenting the bulk of your facts and all of your main ideas that are associated to your speech. So you're going to present those main ideas, and you're also going to give supporting material, such as evidence, stories, statistics, anything that might help to boost your main points and give evidence that they are correct. So you always want to be able to back up what you're saying, because just saying a statement doesn't convince anyone nowadays. You have to show proof. So the way you can show proof is through these multitude of ways, including citing a source that's very credible. You can cite some statistics. Like if I were to talk about COVID, I can cite some statistics by the CDC, which is the Center of Disease Control, or I can say something that the World Health Organization has cited. Those are credible organizations where everyone will accept what statistics they're presenting, and they make you more credible when you're showing that you use reliable sources throughout the body of your speech with the supporting material. The last part of your speech will be the conclusion. This is to signal that the speech is coming to an end. This is also where you will summarize whatever you've covered in the bulk of your speech. You want to try to make it memorable. The audience will, after the speech is done, the audience will most likely always only remember the conclusion of your speech. So if that's the case, then you want to make your conclusion in such a way that if your audience remembered nothing else, which is probably going to be the case, that they get a full understanding of your speech and a good summary of what it is that you've covered. So you want to reiterate the main points, your topic, your purpose, and give them that concise summary, definitely in the conclusion. This is through reiterating your main points and bringing your speech full circle. You also want to wrap up any loose ends at this point. And what do I mean by loose ends? By the time you come to your conclusion, if you think the audience might have any questions about anything that you have presented thus far before the conclusion, then it is your responsibility to answer any questions that they might have at that point, uh, right in the conclusion. So, one way that you could potentially practice this is before you have to deliver the speech, practice giving it to a family member or a friend. And by the time you reach the conclusion, ask them, do you have any questions? And when you hear their questions, understand if you think that a lot of people are going to have those questions when you do deliver your speech. If your answer is yes, then you should try to answer those questions within the body of your speech and add those points. Or you can add them right in the beginning of your conclusion and answer any of those doubts. So here is an example of a specific purpose. What you want the audience to learn or do as a result of your speech and not necessarily stated in the speech itself. So that is my purpose. My purpose is that you want the audience to learn or do something from the speech. And one example of this could be is to show my audience through a series of easy steps how to perform meditation. So if my speech is an informative speech about the steps, the proper steps on how to perform meditation, let's go through this example and see how I would outline the speech. So you want to come up with a thesis statement first. This is the central idea of the speech. The thesis is expressed throughout your speech. So my thesis statement would be, when performed correctly, meditation is an effective and easy way to reduce stress. So when I come up with my thesis statement, I know exactly what it is that I'm trying to convey by delivering the speech. Once I have this, I can come up with the main points that I want to cover during my speech. The first step of meditation is positioning. This would be my main point number one. The second step of meditation is breathing. This would be my main point number two. The third step of meditation is relaxation. This would be my main point number three. So you can see here that I have a clear thesis and I have clear 3 points that I want to cover during the course of my speech. Now, when I brainstorm, I can start to come up with ideas on how I can reinforce these main points and what information I want to share to support these main points. You also want to restrict the number of main points. 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. So you want to restrict the number of main points. As you see on the last slide here, I have about 3 main points that I want to cover throughout my speech. You want to try to keep these number of main points between 2 and 7. If you exceed 7, then I would consider this to be an information overload. The problem with giving too much information is that people will remember almost none of it. And it's not going to be structured well if you're trying to cram an insane amount of information, because the thought process is the more information I give, the more credible I sound, which is incorrect. This is actually false. If you don't spend enough time clearly explaining what it is that you are trying to present and make everyone understand easily and effectively, then it doesn't matter how much information you present. You can present 300 facts in the course of 20 minutes. But if you do that, no one is going to understand anything and they're going to lose interest in you as well. So less is more if you structure this speech well. So always try to remain between 2 and 7 main points. So when it comes to organizing the speech, there's 2 psychological effects that I like to tell my students about. Um, on a much simpler scale, this just means to present your main ideas in the introduction and conclusion, but I'll explain why. So there is an effect called the primacy effect, which is a psychological principle in which listeners have a better recall of the main points made at the beginning of a speech than of those made later. So this means that if you present your main ideas in the beginning of the speech and you tell your audience about what it is that you're going to be covering, they will clearly remember those main points. There is another effect called the recency effect, which is a psychological principle in which listeners have a better recall of the most recent points in their speech. So this means that this effect states that listeners will remember more if you present your main ideas in the conclusion. So we know that for all of your speeches, you should be presenting your main ideas in the introduction and conclusion. These 2 effects just confirm that aspect. So, in essence, just make sure to present these main ideas in the intro and the conclusion. So, I'm going to launch a quick poll here. You'll see it on your screen very shortly. This poll is what should be included in the introduction. Option 1 is topic and purpose. Option 2 is supporting material. And option 3 is wrapping up any loose ends. I'm going to leave this on the screen for just about a minute, and then I'll close the poll. Okay, I see that most of you have answered. I'm going to go ahead and close. About 96% of you picked topic and purpose, which is the correct answer. You always want to include your topic and purpose in the introduction, as this is where you are telling the audience about what you're speaking about and why you're speaking about it. Supporting material should be in the body of your speech, and wrapping up any loose ends should occur in the conclusion. I'm going to end this poll here. So, coming to this aspect of main points are single ideas. The first sentence that I have on the screen here is an incorrect way to present a main idea. It states, West Texas has its own Grand Canyon, and South Texas has its own desert. So the correct way to share this statement would be as 2 separate main points, and it would be West Texas boasts its own Grand Canyon, and also South Texas boasts its own desert. Main points should always be mutually exclusive, not directly connected to each other. So in this above example, we see that I'm talking about different parts of Texas and different geographical features. When that's the case, I shouldn't present that as one main idea. Those should be 2 separate main ideas so the audience would not get confused. So each main point should be a declarative sentence, one that asserts or claims something, and each main point should follow parallel formatting. Parallel formatting is just following a similar grammatical form and style. So it's trying to say your main ideas in the same type of way. So organizing the speech. Coming to the thesis statement, this thesis statement I've made is female student athletes who played NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 sports in college outperform other college graduates on important career and life outcomes. So I'm trying to inform or persuade the audience that NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 athletes in college will outperform other college graduates in important career and life outcomes. This is my thesis statement, and this is the basis on which I will center my speech around. So, coming to an incorrect way of saying my main points would be female former student athletes are more likely to be employed full-time, 62%, compared with female graduates who are non-student athletes. So in this sentence, or this main idea, I'm talking about former female student athletes first, and then about female graduates who are not student athletes. I should try to keep this form when I present my other two main ideas. So I have here my three main ideas for my speech, but they're not in this type of parallel formatting. The second main point reads, they're also more likely to thrive physically than their non-athlete peers. And the third point reads, social well-being is another aspect in which female student athletes who have graduated college score better than non-athlete peers. These sentences are no way alike, and they do not follow this type of parallel formatting. Now I'll show you the correct form, which does follow this level of formatting. The first sentence is the same, and it reads, female former student athletes are more likely to be employed full-time, 62%, compared with female graduates who are not student athletes. So I still start with former student athletes, and I end with female graduates, and I give percentage figures. So the correct way to formulate my second main point would be, female former student athletes are more likely to thrive in their physical well-being, with 47% having good health and enough energy to get things done on a daily basis, as compared with 33% of female non-athletes. This follows the same type of sentence structure and grammar that my first main point followed. Same for the third one. Female former student athletes are more likely to thrive in their social well-being, with 53% reporting strong supportive relationships compared with 48% of their female counterparts. So as you can see, all three of my main points now do follow this parallel formatting, and they read the same type of way, and my audience would not get confused about how I'm presenting. So you want to try to follow this parallel formatting whenever you present a main idea throughout your speech for any kind of speech. So coming to organizing the speech, you want to use supporting points to prove, solidify, substantiate claims. So you have your main ideas, and it's not good enough just to state your main idea. You have to be able to back it up with some sort of evidence. How do you give evidence? You give examples to back up those main ideas. You can even tell stories about your life, or even make one up depending on the topic that you're presenting. You can always present facts from any sort of journals or any credible sources. And you can always use data and statistics to back up any of the claims that you are making for your main ideas. It is actually proven that having some sort of statistics and data within your speech that is relevant will make your speech much more effective if you cite your source. So if your source is very credible and you're citing some sort of statistics, whatever the topic may be, like if I'm comparing these NCAA athletes, I can easily find some statistics that some sports group or organization has compiled. And if I refer to those and use them in my speech, then it makes my speech just sound like I prepared more, and it makes it more credible because I'm also citing other sources. I'm just one person, but as soon as I cite an organization that is credible, I'm also like a spokesperson for that organization because I'm citing their facts. So it makes you more credible when you're presenting that information. And you should always try to incorporate some level of evidence to back up all of your claims and your main ideas. So coming to coordination and subordination, this is the logical placement of ideas relative to their importance to one another. Ideas that are coordinate are given equal weight, and any idea that is subordinate is given to a relatively less weight. So the slide is a little confusing, but I'll explain here. So you start with a main idea, and then from your main idea, there's going to be some part of it that you want to explain. That would come as your subpoint A. And then to give evidence to back up your subpoint A, you would make some points to back that up, which we'll call as subpoint 1 and subpoint 2. This is the type of format that you want to follow for supporting your main ideas and explaining them throughout your speech. Once you're done giving your evidence to support your subpoint A, if there's another aspect of your main point 1 that you want to talk about, that would become your subpoint B. And again, you would back that up with some level of evidence as more subpoints. Then you would continue to your next main point and you would follow the same guide. So the guide here is to present your main point, talk about one aspect of it, give your evidence, give your stories, give your statistics to back that up, then move on to any other aspect of that main point that you would like to cover. Again, give those evidence and credentials, whatever it is that you're using to back up that point, and then continue on to your next main idea until you finish your main ideas. And again, try to keep your main ideas limited between 2 and 7, unless your speech is going to go on for more than 1 hour. So the next point here is about being unified, coherent, and balanced. So unity means that all points are reflected in the thesis and purpose, and no random points coming from nowhere. So this means that everything that you're presenting should always reflect your thesis and purpose for why you're speaking. There shouldn't be something that you're just saying randomly because you wanted to make your speech meet a certain time limit or what have you. All your points should clearly be reflected from your thesis and your purpose. Everything that you present should also be very coherent, which means that it should be clear and logical. People always think that it sounds better when you present some complicated information. But honestly, all that does is confuse someone and confuse your audience. It is much tougher to make a complicated information or delivery into a very simple way that everyone can understand. So always try to make complicated things and complicated subjects that you're going to explain. Try to explain it so that everyone can understand. It is much harder to do, but it makes your speech a lot more effective. So your speech body should expand on the introduction. You're going to be stating your main ideas and giving a glimpse of what it is that your speech will cover in the intro. And the body should definitely expand on that with your main ideas and the evidence to back those up. The conclusion summarizes the body, and you would use transitions so that you can link everything together and that the audience clearly knows when you're shifting from one part of your speech to the next. So from your introduction to your main idea 1, or from your main idea 1 to your main idea 2, there should be some level of transition that is happening that notifies the audience that you are moving on from one topic to the next. So coming to balance, all your main points should have somewhat equal subpoints and supporting evidence. What this means is when you have a main idea, you are going to be backing it up with some level of evidence. If you have 2 main ideas in your speech and one main idea has 9 types of evidence that you are putting forth, such as statistics or stories or world events or something from a science article, anything, and your other main point only has 2, the balance is off for your speech. Most of your speech would be about your main point number 1, and very little of it would be about your main point number 2. This makes the audience think that you've prepared well for one part of your speech, but the second part of your speech, you didn't prepare well, and this reduces your credibility. So try to have the same amount of evidence and subpoints or supporting information for each of your main ideas. So if you're supporting your main idea 1 with 4 or 5 subpoints and evidence, then try to follow that same number for your other main ideas that you are going to be presenting. And do keep in mind your time limit that you have to give your speech so that you can make sure that you can fit everything in and explain everything effectively. Because again, less is more. So if you present 2 main ideas well for 10 minutes, that in my book is much better than you trying to fit in 4 or 5 in those 10 minutes. So I have a short video here that our company made. I'm just going to go ahead and play. It's just a teaser video. So it's just explaining that our company offers, International STEM Academy offers a wide variety of classes. And feel free to check them out on our website. And as you know, this is, apologize, let me pause that. As you know, this is a workshop class. So we have 4 workshops. This is the 3rd one. We will be having 1 more workshop. But if you are interested, you can join the full course, which will offer 15 sessions. It will be about 3.5 months. It will be covering informational speech, persuasive speech, personal speech, and also special occasion speeches. Obviously, in 4 sessions, we cannot cover or ask all of you guys to talk and practice giving your speech because it's too many people. But for those classes, we have much smaller class sizes. I think it'll be restricted to 6 students. So if you're interested, please do join the full class. I will be teaching the class between 4th and 7th graders, just like this session. So moving on from that, we're going to be covering this transition slide. So transitions do matter. They can make your speech flow like a story, linking one idea to another so the audience can follow the direction you're heading. And always use transitions to move on from one topic to the next. So one type of transition is a rhetorical question. An example of this would be, I just talked about the amazing technology that can be used to build a Mars base right now, today. I now want to start talking about the broken politics and economics of the world when it comes to using smart technology for sustainable development. How can I do this? So by me asking a rhetorical question is a question that you don't expect an answer for. You basically say the question and then you say the answer immediately afterward. So this is one way that you can transition from one topic to the next. As you can see, I was talking about the Mars base, and now I wanted to start talking about these broken politics and economics. So I can ask, how do I do this? And then I can start answering this question. So now coming to different types of organizational arrangements. So these are the ways or methods that you can organize your speech to be the most effective. The first type is chronological. So this is also called as temporal patterns. It's just a fancy word for saying going in sequential order. So going in the order that an event happens. So if you're going through a speech on events through history, you would start with the event that happened the farthest back in time and end with the event that you want to discuss that happened most recently. If you're following the life of a person or explaining the life of a person, you would start at their birth and you would end with their most recent events or accomplishments, or if they passed away, mention that. So chronological is just following the steps as if you were actually following time. Moving on, you can also follow a spatial organizational pattern. So this means that your main ideas follow the physical or geographical arrangement of a place, a scene, or an object. So, for example, if you're giving a speech on the voting results in the United States, you could break up the United States into regions such as the West, the Midwest or the East or South, North, however you would want to break it up. Or you can break it up by state and start going by a state basis what the results were in the polls. So this is a spatial organizational arrangement, and it can be used when you are discussing about certain places or geographic regions, anything that has to do with them. In this case, we're talking about voting, but whatever it is, if you're talking about vast geographical regions or even a small region that you're focusing on different aspects, then you want to follow this type of organizational method. The next method here is cause and effect. So this is when main points explain or argue a topic in terms of its underlying causes and effects, or effects and causes. So you would say why it is that something is occurring, and then tell everyone or explain to everyone what the effect of that event occurring causes. So you can say that a cause is pollution, or you can say that cars are polluting a lot, factories are polluting a lot, and then you can explain the effect of that on the environment. You can say that due to this, the global temperature has risen, and because of that, the ice caps are now melting and our ocean levels are rising, which is going to reclaim more land. And eventually, if we keep going on at this rate, then all of the world, or all the land of the world, will be starting to cover by water. So this is a cause and effect type of organizational arrangement and can be used as such. You can also present a problem solution type of arrangement. In this, you would present a problem, explain what the problem is, why it's occurring, how it's occurring, and then you would move on to the solution. So I see a lot of you here typing comments. I will be answering questions at the end. I will leave time at the end. So go ahead and post your comments in the chat and we'll review them at the end. So here, the main points demonstrate the nature and significance of a problem and justify a proposed solution. So a speech on needing a spotlight or a stoplight at a particular intersection would use this arrangement. You can say that the problem is that traffic is being clogged up because there is no stoplight, and then the solution would be to build a stoplight or install a stoplight there so that everyone can move effectively and not have to wait too long for their turn in order to move throughout that spot. Next type of arrangement is topical. So this is main points or subtopics or categories of the speech topic. So a speech on studying black holes can use this arrangement, breaking the subject into the various methods on how to study them. So if you're talking about how to study black holes and you have some 7 different methods on how to study them, then you can go through each method, and that would be a topical arrangement. Coming to a narrative, this is when you try to express your main ideas and convey them as speech ideas through a story, a character, plot, setting, conflict, and resolution. So you are trying to make your speech sound like a story and sound interesting with characters and development and some sort of excitement or suspense. And a speech on overcoming a disability after an accident could follow this arrangement. So if I'm talking about my own personal experience of going through a disability that an accident caused, I could go ahead and start off with how my day was going before the accident occurred, then that accident occurring, me being in the hospital, how I felt, who came to see me, maybe someone didn't come to see me that I thought that they would, and I realized that they're not my friend or they're not as close to me as I thought they were. And then I had to fight to regain my mobility because of the accident. I had to go to physical therapy. I had to do all of these things and push myself. And then at the end of it, I came through and I came out much stronger physically and mentally because of it. That would be a narrative. That is me explaining my experience as a story. So that is a narrative type of arrangement, and this can be used mainly when you are talking about your personal experiences. So coming on how to outline your speech. So when you're outlining your speech, I recommend creating 2 outlines. One would be a working outline. This is your preparation or your rough outline. This can be your brainstorming and your word association. Then you make full sentences and you create your entire speech. Make sure all your information is organized and supported, like we went through earlier, with your main ideas, your subpoints, and all the evidence that backs up those subpoints, your introduction, and your conclusion, and some transitions to move you from one part of your speech to the next. So this would be your full outline. This is going to be pretty large and it could be several pages. And this will outline your entire speech. But you don't want to take your working outline as what you refer to when you're presenting. Because I'll tell you why. If you take up 5, 6 pages to your podium or wherever you're presenting, and you start flipping through and you start trying to talk and you're continuously referring to what you are looking at, you are always going to be looking down at your notes or your papers. You're not going to be engaging the audience. You want to engage the audience. You want to give them as much eye contact as you can. You want to make eye contact with every person in the audience at least once. This makes your speech much more personable and makes everyone's attention on you. If you yourself are not focusing on the audience, then how do you expect them to focus to you? You can't. You have to give them attention and then they'll give you attention. So, what you do is you create a delivery outline or a speaking outline. This is what you would take up with you when you go present. It can be a note card and it should be very small and it should just have very brief ideas on what you want to mention in your speech. So just put your main ideas and maybe a few supporting facts that you know you want to mention. It should definitely just fit onto a note card and have some bullet points. What this helps you with is if you've practiced enough, you don't need any crutch such as 5, 6 pages on what to say. You already know what it is that you're going to say. But if you have some bullet points written down, you know that you won't miss anything when you're talking. So when you look down at your note card, if you had 5, 6 points that you wanted to cover in your speech, and you know you've covered 4 of them, you know which 2 it is that you haven't covered yet, and you know that you should cover them before the ending of your speech. So that is why you should create a speaking outline or version of your speech, which you should take up with you. So outlining your sentences or outlining with sentences, each main point should be written in a clear and full sentence, and each supporting point should also be written in clear, full sentences. And then when you outline with phrases, you can use partial sentences to give you the general idea of what it is that you want to say. This speaking outline will only work if you prepare. So if you prepare and you have just a few words written down, you will remember everything from those few keywords. Coming to outlining with keywords, this is a short version using only 1 or 2 keywords. These keywords should remind you of everything that you are trying to present. This will make you sound more confident and familiar with your subject because these words will trigger your memory and you'll know exactly what you're referring to and what to say. So you should want to glance at these keywords and be able to run with that as a way to maintain better eye contact with the audience. You always want to try to maintain as much eye contact as you possibly can. Reading a sheet or reading completely from any sort of reference will make you seem disconnected from your audience. So just glancing is much better. So you can glance and then you can speak. But if you haven't prepared or practiced, a glance is not enough and you're going to have to read. So again, preparation is very key. So create your working outline first, outline the body of the speech, outline the introduction. The introductions are what lead to the body, and the introductions must get your audience's attention, introduce the topic in the thesis, and most importantly, establish your credibility. So with that, I'm going to launch another poll here. What does thesis mean? So does thesis mean one main idea? Does it mean the central idea of a speech? Or does it mean the summary of conclusion? I'm going to leave this up just for 20, 30 seconds. So the correct answer here is central idea of the speech. The thesis is what you are trying to communicate to the audience, essentially in one sentence. So one main idea is incorrect because that is only a portion of your thesis. And a summary of your conclusion is overall, this would give too much information. And it's not exactly the central idea of your speech as you're explaining all of your main ideas individually or listing them out. I'm going to end the polling here. So about 82% of you got that correct. Close that. So create a working outline first. The conclusion summarizes the body. It reiterates the key points and closes the speech with something to think about or a call to action. Credit all your sources that you're using to support your arguments and your points, and create a separate works cited bibliography, which is a list of your sources in which you list your sources alphabetically. And the last step is to create a title of your speech. So outlining your speech, prepare a speaking outline for delivery. Now turn your working outline into keywords or phrases so that it's short, concise, and easy for you to follow. And this outline should help you deliver the information. So this is transitioning from your brainstorming session or your full outline into a speaking outline, which is essentially just keywords. So a personal tip here, let's say you have any of these instances. When practicing, is there a part of your speech that always stumps you? So you know you keep practicing and there's a part of your speech that somehow you keep messing up or you keep forgetting or confusing. Maybe you can't remember what exactly comes next, or you feel pressure by time to keep going, and then you brain freeze. So what do you do at moments like these during a speech? I would say that the best tip is to sip water. So always take water with you, and you can literally write down sip water into your speech outline. And just before that part, you can take a natural pause. You don't actually have to sip water or have water. You can just take a pause there. Your audience will understand that you've spoken a lot and that you're just catching your breath, and your audience won't know why. But you can take a pause and you can gather your thoughts and you can think about what to say next. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and anxious, taking that little bit of time just to reset yourself will make that rest of your presentation that much better. Because if you're continuously anxious for the rest of your presentation, it is very ineffective. So take some time. If you want to actually sip water, you can go ahead, but just take a few moments, take a deep breath, and you can understand what to do next. And, I see a lot of students when they mess up or they don't know what to say next, they completely freeze and they're frozen by anxiety because they think they've messed up. It's okay. Like, we're all human. Everyone is not perfect. You will not give a perfect speech every single time. I don't. I've been practicing this for years. But what you can do is minimize those mistakes. Just take a breath, take a second, drink some water, or just breathe and regain your composure and continue. And that's it. That's the same method you should use in life as well. We make mistakes, you fall down, you should just get back up quickly and try not to make that mistake again and don't dwell on it. So let's take that deep breath and continue forward. So don't just think that you're having a sip of water, but you can use that moment to steady yourself, think about what's next, and then proceed. So for homework, you can make a working outline for this informative speech. You can pick any topic that you would like and make some sort of working outline that you can use and remember to use full sentences. So now I'll use this time to answer any remaining questions that we have. I'm going to stop sharing here. I'll read through the chat and I'll start answering as many questions as I can. So will there ever be a scenario when we will be giving a speech with someone else? Yes, I see this a lot in debate groups throughout school. You'll be having to give a tandem speech. So you might have to switch off the information that you are presenting. And the key to these is just to practice with your partner as much as possible. So you clearly know what they should be saying and what you should be saying so you don't get confused. So what happens if you don't know an answer to a question that you have not added in your speech or a family member has not asked it? If you don't know the answer to a question, then you should try to give an answer that you think is correct. But if you clearly know that you don't know anything about that question, then it's better to be honest and say, hey, I don't know. That's okay. You know, we don't know everything on the world, and no one expects that. So, can we have multiple methods of organizing this speech? I would try to stick with one because if you have too many or multiple, it confuses the audience. Will the conclusion be the same for persuasive too, like the structure? So the conclusion is pretty much the same for any type of speech. You want to reiterate your main points that you've stated throughout your body, your main ideas, and you also want to leave them with something to think about so that they think about your speech after you're done. So after you've given your speech, most people are not going to remember anything that you present. You want to try to give them something to think about after you're done or something to talk about with someone else that they've learned from your speech. So let me see. So I see a question here. What if taking a moment in your speech does not help your anxiety? The number one thing that will help your anxiety is practicing public speaking. Because there is very few times that we practice public speaking, we don't really practice it every day. You're not given the opportunity. So you need to take a class, you need to do something where you can practice. Practice, even if you don't have anyone to practice with, practice in front of a mirror. You can even record yourself, place, your phone and record and watch yourself after you're done. And you can clearly see what parts you've presented well and what parts you need help with. So I see a question here. Have you ever felt anxious and had to take a minute to recall your speech? Yes, so many times. Can you explain what happened? Um, I forgot what to say next. Same type of issue. Um, and you feel anxious no matter how much you prepare. Sometimes you feel that anxiety. You see everyone in the room looking at you, waiting for you to say the next thing, and you don't want to say something wrong. And you start to feel more and more anxious. So I have to take that second to stop. I personally always take water with me. So when you start drinking water, no one questions you as long as you don't do it for too long. The moments that you're drinking water, just calm yourself. The water will calm you anyway, and you can think about what to say next and you can continue from there. I see someone would prefer to practice in front of a mirror or family. Honestly, do both. When you practice in front of your family, they will have some sort of feedback for you. And then when you practice in front of a mirror, you can clearly see yourself and you will know what you need to change. How does public speaking help with debate? Debate is public speaking. I don't think there's really anything to answer there. Debate is just a form of public speaking. So what if what you're saying is not clear to the audience, like they don't understand? So this would probably happen if you're presenting a very complicated topic. And if you can see that a lot of people are visibly confused in the audience or they're asking too many questions, then you need to dial down what it is that you are going to present and start to explain to them in more simpler concepts so that everyone can get on the same page. Sometimes we prepare a speech thinking that everyone in the audience is skilled enough to understand, but if you can see that they are not, then you need to dial down the speech in order for everyone to understand clearly. Should you talk fast when you are giving a speech? Only in very few portions. You want to talk so that everyone understands you. If you start talking too fast and if you keep doing this for too long, you're going to lose your entire audience. You want to talk clearly and slowly and effectively. And then in the points that you might want to give emphasis, you can talk a little bit faster, or the points that are not as important. And if you want to stress something, then you can talk slower and then fast, or fast and then slow. So any way that you can incorporate that to highlight something, you can do that. When did you find out you wanted to teach public speaking? So I actually took a speech minor in college, and I took a lot of public speaking classes and human communication classes. And after I took my first one or two, I realized how important it was and that I liked it a lot. So then I just continued and I eventually got a minor in it. So I see a question. What if you get nervous and you are talking very fast? How do you make talking fast slow down when you are nervous? Again, breathe. When you are talking too quickly, you are talking too rapidly, and you are not getting enough oxygen. This will continuously make you to talk faster. So take a deep breath and slow down. It's okay if you pause for some time. It's better to take that pause for 10 seconds or 30 seconds and recollect yourself and continue rather than still continuing, when you are struggling that much. Why do you have to share your main ideas in the introduction and conclusion? So, in the introduction, you want to share them so that everyone knows what it is that you are going to be speaking about for that amount of time. If someone is going to be giving 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever amount of time to you to listen to you, then you need to inform them about what it is that you're talking about. And same way in the conclusion. The conclusion is going to be the aspect of the speech that your audience remembers the most. Thesis statement. So someone said, why is thesis statement so important? Thesis statement is a statement for yourself. So you know that all of the speech that you develop is going to revolve around that, and you won't get off track by presenting facts or evidence or main ideas that don't suit your topic and purpose. So that's why we make a thesis statement and we write down our topic and purpose so that everything that we develop is centered around that. So, what if you have a short time to talk, but you have a long speech? That means you have too much information. If you have a very short amount of time, then you need to only present very few main ideas. If you only had 3 minutes to present something, maybe you only should present one or two main ideas. So you need to determine that. What should you do if you don't know how to control your speed? So the first aspect of knowing if you're going at a correct pace or not is practicing in front of other people, because they will tell you if you are going too fast or too slow. It's very hard for you to judge yourself if you're going too fast or too slow. So you need to practice with your family, friends, whoever it is, and you need to take their critique into consideration and change the way or the speed in which you are speaking. Okay, let me see. Why can't you use monotone? So monotone is talking in the same type of way continuously for a long amount of time. This is almost like a lullaby and makes your audience go to sleep. So this doesn't sound interesting. You want to change how you're speaking throughout your speech so that you can retain the audience's attention. So with that, I want you guys to prepare an informative speech, have a working outline for next class, and we can look through that. So I'll see you guys for next session. Hope you have a good rest of your week. Thank you. Bye. Good night.